November 14th, 1977, 2:30 p.m. Central Park, New York City, near the Bow Bridge. John Lennon pushes Sean's stroller along the winding path that connects the Bethesda Fountain to the quieter northern reaches of Central Park, following a route that has become their daily ritual during the mild autumn afternoons when the city's pace slows enough to allow for the kind of unhurried exploration that defines his new life as a full-time father. Sean, now 18 months old, babbles contentedly as the stroller wheels roll over fallen leaves, his small hands reaching toward the ducks that paddle across the lake, toward the squirrels that dart between oak trees, toward the endless variety of sights and sounds that make each walk an adventure for a toddler, discovering the world one careful step at a time. If you enjoyed the video, don't forget to subscribe, comment, and like it. For the past 6 weeks, their daily walks have included an unexpected constant. An elderly man who sits on the same bench near the Bow Bridge, always alone, always reading the same worn paperback book, always positioned where he can observe everyone who passes along the main walking path. The man appears to be in his 70s, thin and weathered, wearing a brown wool coat that has seen better decades, and a cap pulled low over eyes that seem to track John's movements with the focused attention of someone who has been waiting for something specific to occur. John has noticed the man's presence because hypervigilance has become second nature during his 18 months as a devoted father, because protecting Sean requires constant awareness of everyone who shares their public spaces, because the transition from global celebrity to anonymous parent has not eliminated his awareness that some forms of attention carry threats rather than simple recognition. But this particular attention feels different from a usual mixture of curiosity and respect that he encounters from New Yorkers who recognize him, but respect his obvious desire for privacy. The elderly man's focus is too intense, too consistent, too purposeful to represent casual interest in a famous musician walking with his child. For 42 consecutive days, he has occupied the same bench at approximately the same time John and Sean pass on their afternoon walk, has maintained the same posture of relaxed observation while clearly tracking their routine with the precision of someone conducting surveillance rather than simply enjoying autumn afternoons in Central Park. Today, John decides to investigate. Instead of continuing past the bench as he has done for 6 weeks, he stops the stroller near where the man sits, pretends to adjust Sean's blanket while studying the stranger's appearance more carefully. The man is older than John initially estimated, perhaps 80, with the kind of weathered features that suggest a lifetime of physical work, hands that show the calluses and scars of manual labor, posture that indicates both age and the persistent strength that comes from decades of active living. But the man's eyes are alert, focused, intelligent in ways that contrast with his appearance as an elderly retiree passing quiet afternoons in a public park. These are eyes that have seen significant events, that have witnessed history, that contain knowledge and experience that transcend the simple story suggested by his modest clothing and unassuming presence on a park bench. "Lovely day for a walk with a young one," the man says, his voice carrying an accent that John recognizes immediately despite 40 years of separation from its source. Liverpool working class, the precise pronunciation and rhythm that shaped John's own speech before years of international travel and cultural assimilation softened the edges of his northern English origins. John feels his stomach drop, his hands tighten on the stroller handle, his entire body shift into the defensive posture that has become automatic whenever unexpected encounters threaten the careful normalcy he has built around Sean's daily routine. The accent alone would be enough to capture his attention, but combined with the man's consistent presence and focused observation, it suggests connections to John's past that make this meeting feel less like coincidence and more like carefully orchestrated confrontation. "Yes," John replies carefully. "Sean enjoys seeing the ducks." "Sean," the man repeats, looking at the child with an expression that combines tenderness and sorrow in ways that make John's protective instincts flare with alarm. Born October 9th, 1975, same birthday as his father. The specific knowledge of Sean's birth date eliminates any possibility that this is casual conversation between strangers sharing a park bench. The man possesses detailed information about John's family, has been conducting research that extends beyond simple recognition of a famous musician to include intimate details about his personal life, his child's birth, his daily routines, and family circumstances. How do you know my son's birthday? The man closes his paperback book, sets it carefully on the bench beside him, looks directly at John for the first time since their conversation began. His eyes are pale blue, the color of winter sky, and they contain something that makes John's breath catch in his throat. Familiarity, recognition, the kind of intimate knowledge that comes from years of shared experience rather than distant observation. Because I was there when you were born, John. October 9th, 1940. Liverpool Maternity Hospital. I held you in my arms when you were exactly Sean's age, watched you take your first steps, heard you speak your first words. The words hit John like physical blows, transforming the peaceful afternoon into a confrontation with impossibilities that challenge everything he understands about death, loss, and the boundaries that separate the living from those who have departed. The man's claim suggests an identity that cannot be accurate, because the person he claims to be died more than a year ago, because John attended that funeral, because grief and reconciliation came too late to repair relationships damaged by decades of absence and misunderstanding. My father died in April 1976. Alfred Lennon died in April 1976. The man agrees. I'm Alfred Lennon, and I am here to warn you about something that will happen 3 years from now if you cannot find a way to change the trajectory of choices you have not yet made. John looks around the park, seeking rational explanations for this encounter, searching for evidence of cameras, recording equipment, elaborate practical jokes designed to exploit his psychological vulnerabilities and family history. But Central Park continues its normal afternoon rhythms. Joggers following their routes, tourists photographing autumn foliage, families enjoying the mild weather before winter transforms the city into a landscape of survival rather than leisure. The normalcy of the surroundings contrasts with the impossibility of the conversation, creating cognitive dissonance that makes John question his own perception rather than accept the apparent reality of speaking with his dead father in a public park while his 18-month-old son plays contentedly in his stroller. You're not Alfred Lennon. I'm Alfred Lennon, changed by death, perhaps, but still your father. Still the man who left you when you were 5 years old, who failed to be present during your childhood, who returned to your life too late to repair the damage caused by decades of absence. Still the man who loved you despite being incapable of demonstrating that love in ways you could recognize or accept. The voice, the accent, the specific details about their complicated relationship combine to create a resemblance that transcends physical appearance, that suggests either elaborate impersonation or genuine supernatural communication. John studies the man's face more carefully, searching for evidence of prosthetics, makeup, surgical alteration that might explain how someone could so perfectly replicate not just Alfred Lennon's appearance, but his speech patterns, his mannerisms, his intimate knowledge of their shared but damaged history. But the resemblance is deeper than cosmetic mimicry, extends to psychological patterns and emotional responses that would be impossible to fake without access to information about Alfred Lennon that exists only in John's private memories of their final meeting before his father's death. This man responds to John's skepticism with the same defensive pride that characterized Alfred's personality, the same combination of affection and awkwardness that defined their attempts at reconciliation during their last years together. What kind of warning? About December 8th, 1980. About choices you will make regarding your return to music, your decision to end the retirement that has kept you safe for the past 2 years. About forces that are waiting for you to resume your public career so they can eliminate the threat you represent to their political objective. The specificity of the date, the detailed knowledge of John's current retirement and potential future decisions, suggest either supernatural awareness or intelligence gathering that extends far beyond what any living person should possess about his private thoughts and undeclared intentions. John has been considering returning to music, has been feeling creative stirrings that make domestic retirement feel temporarily fulfilling rather than permanently satisfying. But these considerations remain internal, unspoken even to Yoko. How do you know about my musical plans? Because death provides perspective on time that the living cannot achieve. Past, present, and future become visible simultaneously. Choices and consequences reveal themselves as connected patterns rather than isolated decisions. I can see the trajectory of your life from birth to death, can observe the moments when different choices might alter outcomes, can can identify the specific decision point where intervention might save your life. Alfred Lennon's ghost describes John's future with clinical precision. The decision to return to recording, the release of new music that reestablishes his cultural influence, the political implications of his renewed public presence during a conservative political period when his anti-war message becomes again relevant and therefore dangerous to established interests. They have been monitoring your retirement, waiting to see whether you would remain permanently silent or eventually resume the activism that made you a target during the 1970s. Your return to music will be interpreted as a return to political influence, will trigger responses that have been planned and prepared during your years of domestic privacy. The ghost explains that John's 18 months as a full-time father have not eliminated the surveillance and threat assessment that defined his life during his peak political activism, have simply shifted the focus from immediate intervention to contingency planning for his eventual return to public prominence. Government agencies, intelligence operations, and political organizations have used his retirement as preparation time, studying his psychological patterns, identifying his vulnerabilities, developing strategies for neutralizing his influence if he chooses artistic expression over protective silence. On December 8, 1980, if you proceed with current plans to return to music, you will be shot and killed outside the Dakota Building by a mentally unstable man who has been influenced and guided by people who understand how to weaponize mental illness for political assassination while maintaining plausible deniability about their involvement. John feels the world shift around him, reality rearranging itself to accommodate information that should be impossible but feels absolutely accurate. The precision of the prediction, the specific date and location, the detailed description of assassination methods that combine political motivation with psychological manipulation create a sense of inevitability that transforms his future from open possibility into predetermined destiny. Sean reaches toward a squirrel that has approached the stroller, babbling with delight at the small creature's fearless curiosity. The child's innocent pleasure contrasts with the conversation about his father's predicted murder, creates emotional whiplash between the joy of present fatherhood and the terror of future assassination, between the safety of this moment and the danger that apparently awaits 3 years in the future. How can I change what you describe? By making different choices about your career, your public presence, your political activism. By choosing permanent retirement over temporary absence, protective silence over artistic expression, family safety over cultural influence. By accepting that your voice, however powerful it might be, is not worth the risk to your son's future, to your wife's welfare, to your own survival. Alfred's ghost describes the choice in terms that echo decisions John has been privately considering. Internal debates between artistic fulfillment, family responsibility that have been growing more urgent as Sean develops beyond infancy into a child who could survive and remember his father even if that father's career choices lead to dangerous consequences. But you also have another option, the ghost continues. You can use the knowledge of your future assassination to prepare defenses, to identify and neutralize the threats before they mature into lethal action, to expose the political forces that plan your elimination, and thereby make that elimination impossible without revealing their involvement. This second option requires active resistance rather than passive protection, demands that John use foreknowledge of his assassination to wage preemptive war against his potential assassins. But such resistance carries its own risks, might accelerate rather than prevent the violence it seeks to avoid, could transform protective knowledge into the trigger for earlier and more comprehensive retaliation against his entire family. The choice is yours, John. Accept permanent retirement and live safely but silently, or fight for your right to artistic expression and risk death, but potentially save other artists who face similar threats. I cannot make the decision for you. I can only provide information that might inform whatever choice you ultimately make. John looks at his son, this child whose existence has redefined every priority and ambition that previously shaped his decisions about career, politics, and public engagement. Sean's welfare has become more important than John's creative fulfillment, more significant than his political convictions, more valuable than his cultural influence. The ghost's warning forces John to weigh Sean's need for a living father against the artistic expression that once defined John's identity and purpose. How do I know you're really my father? Because I know things only Alfred Lennon could know. I know about the guilt you carried for refusing to see me during your childhood, the anger you felt about my absence during your mother's death, the complicated mixture of love and resentment that defined our relationship when I returned to your life during your 20s. I know about our last conversation, when you told me you forgave me for leaving, but could never trust me not to leave again. The emotional accuracy of these memories confirms the ghost's identity in ways physical resemblance never could. Alfred Lennon's ghost possesses not just factual knowledge, but intimate understanding of the emotional damage and healing that defined their final years. I know you named Sean partially for me, that his middle name honors the grandfather he will never meet, that you hope to be a better father to him than I was. Every day you spend with Sean is an attempt to repair the wounds my absence left in your childhood. John feels tears rising, emotions he believed resolve returning with fresh intensity. The ghost understands not just events, but motivations and feelings, the inner landscape that shapes John's approach to fatherhood as compensation for abandonment and reconciliation. What happens if I choose to fight rather than hide? If you fight, you expose corruption far beyond your own life. Systematic targeting of artists and cultural figures whose influence threatens power structures. You reveal how agencies use intimidation, assassination, and psychological manipulation to control expression and dissent. The ghost describes a future where John's resistance becomes symbolic of cultural freedom, inspiring others to resist. But fighting also increases danger to his family. Subtle threats escalate into direct retaliation. Yoko and Sean become targets. Resistance turns assassination into family annihilation. The stakes expand beyond John to everyone he loves. Artistic expression becomes warfare, where resistance triggers punishment against the innocent. John pulls Sean's stroller closer, sits beside his father's ghost, absorbing a reality where every future choice means a different form of loss. I need time to think. You have 3 years. But remember, those planning your assassination are also preparing, studying you, refining their methods. Time favors them unless you use it to build resistance rather than fear consequences. Alfred's ghost stands, book in hand, preparing to leave. Will I see you again? You will, when you need guidance. I can show possible futures, but I cannot choose for you. That belongs to the living. The ghost walks away, blending into the park crowd, but the warning remains. Sean falls asleep as John sits, realizing fatherhood is no longer simple joy, art no longer personal expression, love no longer safe from politics. Alfred Lennon has given his son knowledge no one should possess, awareness of his assassination and the forces behind it. But knowledge without power becomes torture, foreknowledge without certainty of prevention. John Lennon will spend the next 3 years living with this awareness, choosing between expression and survival, courage and protection, sacrifice and silence. Some warnings prevent tragedy. Others only grant time to prepare. The ghost has given John 3 years to decide whether foreknowledge is an opportunity for change or simply the cruel awareness of an unavoidable fate. Don't forget to subscribe, like, and leave a comment with your thoughts on the video. I always enjoy reading your feedback.